You all know today that suicide is being talked about as a public problem because all of a sudden there's a celebrity who's dead. And but as a physician, I have seen suicide everywhere. At work, outside. It's one of the leading cause of death in India and worldwide, especially among the youth. And many of us, our loved ones, can be suffering from psychological illnesses. So, today we are going to see what we can do to tackle this problem without having to spend any money and only using our minds. So, and as always, I'm going to have 4 slides and then we will end with the Yoga Sutra. So, if you go to the causes of suicide, here I have a simple diagram which shows that, there are some known causes sometimes, like love affairs, bankruptcy, drug abuse, failure in the exam, marriage related. So, this is only a small segment of the causes. But if you see it, look at the majority of the causes from here to here, right? It says here other causes, meaning the causes are unknown. Family problems, we don't know what kind of family problems. Then there is illnesses, we don't know whether it's mental illness or physical illness. And here there is cause unknown. So the majority of the cause is probably existing in that patient's life for a very long time. And it's not clear because they haven't been able to deal with it. So there are so many areas of uncertainties when it comes to the cause of a suicide. And this is the area we are going to be dealing with today. There is a small percentage where there is triggers that happens, but the majority of them are causes that are unclear. So some facts about suicide, why this is important and why we should be talking about this today. So we all know that, or we should be knowing that it is 800,000 of people die every year in the world. 17% of the above population is in India, which is 135,000 of deaths every year. This is about 10 times the number of people who died from coronavirus. Now, the methods are poisoning 33%, hanging is 26%. Males often commit suicide more than females. Majority are in the age group of 15 to 39 years. Now, this is very crucial, and this is why this topic is very important. So starting from teenage till the beginning of the middle age group. So 95% of them have an underlying psychiatric illnesses. Lesser education is also an important cause associated with high rates. More in unmarried than married, but this is now changing. So the incidence between suicide rates between married and unmarried people is somewhat same now. More in people who underwent childhood abuse, and more in people who have a family history of suicide. So that's the facts of some facts that are important to know why this problem is a huge thing today. Now this brings us to the next slide, which is probably the one of the important concept I want to introduce. Now, remember, these concepts that I'm introducing, you are not going to find it in books or online or in any kind of specific book, because I am presenting this as Sahila by combining the knowledge from hundreds of medical books, psychological books, and spiritual books. So please don't try to search them online with this names. You may not find it, or you may find it in a different way, and you might get confused. So I would advise you to listen to my explanation first. So we in yoga, in a yogic philosophy, they say there is 8 kinds of property, or Ashta Daridra. Ashta means 8, Daridra means poverty. Okay, so this is a very concept. This concept has been existent for several years. But poverty means in Western philosophy, we often think automatically that it is a beggar or a poor person, right? But in yogic philosophy, it's not like that. They say that there are different kinds of property, and it is well known. And what are these different 8 kinds of property? Lack of wealth, lack of longevity, lack of wealth, lack of health, lack of prosperity. You can add happiness here. Lack of progeny or children, lack of success, lack of peace, lack of fame, and lack of beauty. Fame, you can say it's more in males, this is more in females. So this kind of types of poverty is widely existent in our current society, and this is present in every social status. Whether you're rich or poor, you will see very often one of these. That's why when they act surprised why celebrities are trying to kill themselves or why they go into depression, it's because they are talking only about one kind of poverty. But that's not true, because they haven't understood the concept of poverty itself, right? So what is common in all these 8 kinds of poverty here? What is common is the lack. The lack or the feeling of something that is missing. Correct? So they have this feeling, the patient's mind is perceiving that as a lack of something. So automatically when the patient comes to me because they have lack of peace or lack of success or lack of something, I am not looking at them as if they have a lack of something. Correct? So this concept you have to understand very well before we go to the next slide. The lack of something or the feeling that something is missing is arising in the patient's mind, right? And that's why they come for help. So that is why it's very important to clean our minds first, where this feeling has originated, where the lack of something has originated. So this brings us to the next slide. So remember the concept of Ashta Daridra, or 8 kinds of poverty. Now this brings us to the next one. These are the 21 steps that I have come up with for my life and for my patients. You can write them, you can stick them in the wall of the person who's suffering from any kind of psychological illness. But I'm going to go over it quickly, and I'll do my best to explain what each steps mean. And I'll give you examples from my life, from my patients' lives I've seen in general. So that will make you understand what it means. So the number one cause that pushes the person to suicide is the lack of meaning in life. So they feel something is lacking in their life, and this is what pushes them to suicide, correct? And this is what we went through, the 8 kinds of lack. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. Yes, in some cases, like, you failed an exam or you had a love failure, then it can happen overnight. But most of them, they have been dealing with this lack of something for a long time, let's say for months or years, and then ultimately it pushes them to kill themselves. So it is usually a deep-rooted complex of fear or a conflict that has arisen in the mind. So one has to become aware and accept the problem. And this is the biggest key to understanding the psychological illness. Unfortunately, 90% of us are still struggling in becoming aware and accepting this problem. And that is why the suicide rates are increasing. So I'm going to go over in the next steps one by one, and you will see how each of these steps are interconnected with each other. So what is the difference between normal and talented people? So most of us, what we think, we are just normal and all the others around us are talented, correct? This is the common feeling, and especially in the age of social media and everything, we think like that because we are not recognizing our own potential. So once we are able to recognize our potential and tap into the knowledge, then you are going to automatically become talented. So there is nothing like gifted or talented people. So the gifted or talented people were able to recognize their full potential, and that's why they became talented. So there is the potential, recognizing the potential that's missing in most people. Now, inferiority complex, right? Everybody feels I'm less than the others. So some people feel that they don't know much compared to others. And instead of acquiring the knowledge, what do? They try to live in self pity. That is bad. So there are two types of inferiority complex: one that lives in self pity, and one that another type where they feel they don't know much compared to others, but in order to make themselves feel better, they try to put others down, like their spouse or kids or co-workers, so they're trying to put others down. So they're always criticizing, always grumpy. So this is the two types of the inferiority complex. So you would have seen such characters, among your friends and your social circle, and both are bad, right? So instead of dwelling in self-pity or criticizing others, the best thing is to acquire more knowledge in whichever field you're interested. Whether you like to paint, whether you like to dance, or whether you like to be an actor. So you start talking to the right people, you start reading the books, you start indulging in that to overcome this inferiority complex. That's the best way to deal with it. Next, resolve the conscious problems first. Now here you have to identify the visible problems that are present in you. It could be like anger, fear, jealousy, hatred, etc. Now they can be removed step by step. Unless you remove these obvious conscious problems, you won't be able to deal with the subconscious problems, correct? So once you are able to, and yoga believes that everyone has a good side inside them. Everyone wants to be good inside. So once the hidden, all the obvious problems are removed, then your inner goodness will shine. Like how you remove, it's like a veil or a dupatta hiding your face. So once that veil of bad qualities are removed, then your inner goodness will become visible to everyone. Now, discover and eradicate the subconscious problems. Now, this is one of the toughest, I would say, for most people, because they get stuck. And many of us, actually, they come to yoga or to the psychologist searching for something, because they are not able to figure out their subconscious problems. So they usually end up seeking for help. And honestly, it happened for me also. So at one point, I had everything going for me. Amazing family, career, money, everything turned out just like the way I had planned, but I still felt miserable and meaningless, and I went into depression. And that's when I started approaching yoga. I started practicing yoga every day. And after that, I transcended those problems with help of yoga, and I was able to achieve the spiritual knowledge. And today I'm able to see the subconscious problems very clearly. Now I'm sharing this from my own personal experience. I'm sharing this from my own personal experience. That's when I realized the problem was actually inside of me and not in others, right? So actually the mental problems is one way to be able to look inside of yourself. So think of the mental problems like a whistle of a pressure cooker. We know how the pressure cooker works, correct? Our mental problems are like the whistles of the pressure cooker, which is telling you that something is wrong inside of you and you need help. Now, the cooker, it's going to send you several whistles in life. And if you keep ignoring the whistles of the cooker, one day it's going to burst open. So that is how the subconscious problems work. So every mental problem is a good sign, actually, if you look at it. So it's like a wake-up call or a whistle of the cooker. It's waiting, it's blowing to letting you, giving you the opportunity to change your life spiritually. And unfortunately, most of them ignore it. Only a very small percentage, like 10%, pay attention to this whistle, and they wake up and start acting and putting their life together. The remaining 90% remain ignorant and confused. So that's about the subconscious. Now stop feeling guilty about the past. And now so many of us, our subconscious minds are conditioned to certain dogmas or fixed concepts that are deep rooted in our minds since childhood, correct? For example, some of them fear spiders, some of them fear snakes, some of them have complicated bigger problems like they hate their parents, or they are jealous of their dear friend. This is called conditioning of their brain. Now you can slowly change them once you are able to recognize these deep rooted conditions, and once you learn to accept and let go of the negative emotions attached to it. For example, if you have always been jealous of your friend in school or college and you're not able to get over it, right? So what do you do in such, and he or she is still your friend. So what do? You say yourself, it's okay. I accept I'm jealous of him or her, and this is normal. It happens in teenage years. Today, I'm happy I'm able to recognize this negative feeling, and I'm going to forgive myself for doing that. I'm going to stop feeling bad for feeling jealous. I was jealous of my friend because he or she was so good at doing certain things and I was not able to do that. Maybe that person was more intelligent, more rich, more popular, whatever. So I'm so happy for him or her and today because he or she was able to achieve all of that. Good for him, right? Good for her. So, and I'm so happy that despite that, this person chose me as her friend or chose me as his friend. So, automatically from jealousy, you are able to move towards the path of gratitude, which is one of the highest positive state in life. So, when you feel good for somebody, then there is no way anything can shake your confidence, correct? So, that is the way to stop feeling guilty about the past and develop confidence. Now small dissatisfaction is necessary to drive you higher. Now many people think in order to be a yogi you have to retire to a simple life and live lazily. No, that is not true. You have to have a passion or a hunger for something, and then only then you're going to go higher in life. Higher meaning higher in career, higher in awareness, higher levels of satisfaction. And this is the goal for all the yogic practitioners. If you see many ancient saints, they say, I have come to yoga because I'm seeking something higher. The seeking should be there. Now, a small child, if you say, she will say, I want an iPad. The parents will say, I want a raise in salary. The president of the country will say, I want more popular votes. So everyone wants to succeed in their field, right? And if someone is not seeking higher in life, then their lives are going to become boring and passionless. And this is also very important to understand when you're entering an exam hall, right? If you are overconfident, you're going to miss out on so many obvious questions. At the same time, if you're overly anxious, then you're not going to be performing well in the exam. But so there is a small amount of dissatisfaction or small amount of fear is necessary for you to perform well in your exams, correct? So that is the way to explain. Now stop comparing yourself to others. Now this is a very dangerous path. Unfortunately, a lot of us do that. So because once you start comparing yourself to others, then there is no end to it, correct? So you will always find someone more richer than you, more beautiful than you, more successful than you. That's always it's always in different grades. So when you start comparing, then you will end up condemning yourself, and this will cause unhappiness inside. For example, if you're comparing yourself to your rich and successful neighbor, you must also realize that neighbor must be undergoing his own insecurities, correct? Because from a distance and outwardly, you're going to see only his fame, his money, and success. But we have no idea what kind of hardships and feelings that person is undergoing on a daily basis. So stop comparing yourself to others, but you can use them to inspire you. That's another step we will come in the end. Now, do the work that suits your personality. Okay, so people often believe that only the talents that gain fame are real talents, right? Now, how many of us may play music like A.R. Rahman, or how many of us can be the best cricketer? Right, but there will be some talent that you are good at. Like, you can probably teach math well, so you can start teaching students math. Or you have compassion to help others, then you can start a non-profit organization. Or you want to grow a garden, so then you can help others grow a garden. So these are all individual talents. They are not going to fetch you fame or money, yes, but they are your special qualities. Identify them and appreciate them. And remember also one thing, that talents change with time. Whatever we recognize talents as today will vanish in 100 years. Like, if you recall 100 years ago, children who can memorize all the Vedas were considered as true talents. But today, our kids are memorizing the latest Bollywood songs and dancing for them. And that is also a talent. And 100 years from now, there will be a different talent. Probably the kids will be mastering artificial intelligence. That is their talent. So that's okay, because with every generation, the kinds of talents that acquire fame is going to change. But you have to recognize what are those special qualities that you have and work in those areas to give you satisfaction. So basically, love what you do and do what you love, right? And you've heard this from so many other sources. Next one. Accept your shortcomings and accept others' shortcomings too. So in yoga, we say that we have to be a witness to our emotions and not suppress it. So the best example that I see these days, suppose you feel attracted to a person and you know that person is married or you're married and you can't act on those emotions, right? And this seems like a very common problem today. So if you start thinking in the direction of, oh my God, I have these dirty emotions in my mind, I'm such a bad person. So automatically you're going to start behaving odd. You're going to feel uncomfortable in front of that person, right? And that means you have not accepted your emotions. But if you start accepting them as your norm, then slowly those emotions will become easy on you, and eventually you will get over them. It's going to take time, but that is a normal way of reacting. Now, in the same way, if someone is expressing romantic feelings towards you, you should not be in a hurry to express your frustration and, lash out at them or do things to hurt them. But just observe your frustration, and slowly you will see with time it will dissipate. And the other person will also understand that. So that's how you understand everybody and accept everybody. So learn to first relax yourself. Correct? So one can understand and accept negative emotions only if you're in a relaxed state of mind. If your mind is constantly in turmoil due to a deadline at work, or and then on the same day, your servant has called in sick, and on the same day you get an email saying your husband is fired from the job, then whatever decisions you take at that point, it will be messed up. Correct? Because your mind is already in a high stress mode. So first, before making any decisions or getting upset, you have to, or getting upset with anyone or anybody, you have to relax yourself. And now yoga and meditation is a very key tool here when it comes to relaxation. And you would have heard this in so many different other sources also. So I'm not the first person saying this. And if you start making big decisions when you're not in a relaxed state of mind, what will happen? You're going to end up making wrong decisions, correct? And at a very crucial time, you'll end up making the wrong decisions. And that is how people end up in bigger disasters for themselves, like depression, suicide, because they are wrong decisions. So understand that relaxation is it's very important, and yoga and meditation is a key here. Now live totally in the now. So what's the meaning of this? Most people who suffer from depression, anxiety are continually living in the past, meaning they are overwhelmed with guilt, regret, remorse, etc. And sometimes these feelings are so deeply imprinted in your memory that you may not even recognize these emotions in the beginning. And it becomes very, very difficult to remove them. But we have to start somewhere, right? So you can start, this would be a very good checklist for you to start analyzing your mind to see if you are going through any of these negative emotions. So most of the time, if you recall your anxious states, it would have occurred when you are reliving your past or you're worrying about the future, right? And even with the coronavirus, you must have seen that you got very anxious when you start thinking about the past or when you start worrying about the future. So it's very important to live in the present moment, which is now, and then make that as a beautiful time. So that's important. So avoid escapism and intoxicating experiences. So usually when people are dissatisfied with their thoughts, with their negative thoughts, what do? They indulge in harmful practices like smoking, drugs, alcohol, etc. Now, some people become so used to these habits that they continuously live in a dreamy state of living, and they become addicted to such conditions. So people often create addictions like this to escape the current moment. Yes, you may feel good at that moment because of whatever addiction you're hooked on to, but when you return to your normal state of mind, you are the old problem will still persist, and it's probably growing too, right? And it will become very huge one day, and then you're going to make bad decisions in your life. So be brave, face your problems. Yes, it will take a lot of time and courage, but that is going to give you long lasting results and happiness, and not the addictions. So number 14, every illness originates in the mind. So what does this mean? So yoga has always emphasized that every illness, unless we are talking about flu or a fracture, those are not from the mind, but all the other illnesses, they are all originating from the mind. Now many modern scientists today are beginning to explore the possibility that cancer originates from mind, but yoga had made that conclusion thousands of years ago, right? It's fascinating if you read some books. So, like, I'm going to quote a simple, common example where, it has been proven that cigarette smoking is associated with increased cancer. But what yogic science believes is that only tension-driven people smoke, and hence it's the tension that is the real reason for developing cancer. And yes, smoking definitely acts as a catalyst to it. So that is what the yogic science believes, and that's what I believe too. Now, this also, why do I believe this? Because this explains why I see so many cancer patients who have never smoked at all, right? And I have seen so many people who are heavy smokers who live till 80 and 90 and never developed any cancer at all. So unfortunately, then there is some other factor which is called tension or stress, right? So the science has not invented a scale to measure tension. And that's why many of us don't even know if we are under tension or under stress, correct? So this is the idea that yogic science explains around cancer, and that's very, very key to understanding how your mind plays a key role for all kinds of illnesses. So that's why it comes to the next step. Empty your mind of negative content. So if the mind is the place or the origin of the illness, so we have to empty the mind of the negative content. So in yoga, we believe by always emptying your negative emotions, it has far reaching effects on your health. And if you're already healthy, you're going to become super healthy and super achievers. But unfortunately, if you're already suffering from cancer or autoimmune illnesses or diabetes or hypertension, then yoga is the way to go, because that is going to give you a cure. It is not going to just cover the symptoms, it is going to cure your inner self. It's going to clean your mind and relax your inner self. And it has a role to play in healing every cell of your body. Now, this is important. Treat the cause. Number 16. Treat the cause, not the symptoms. So, how do we do that? So, some people don't fully accept that their mind is the real culprit of their unhappiness. So, what do? They think that their mind is just imagining things. And what do? They try to alter the outer environment. So they try to treat the symptoms and not the cause. Yes, you have to adapt to the outer environment also, which is important. But more important is to clean the negative mind negative mind. So there is a saying, when you say, what good is a clean house if the people living in it are miserable, right? I mean, the house may look beautiful from outside. There is a lawn, it has a nice pool and big house. But if you go inside the house, you see that the couple is not talking to each other. The kids are unhappy. They're probably addicted to something. So that is not the way to handle your negative emotions. So you have to treat the cause. How do we do that? Adjustment is not acceptance. So this brings us to the next step. So this is particularly true, I have seen in many troubled marriages. Often couples think that by adjusting with one another, you can behave like a couple to the outside environment. Correct? So once you go inside their house, there is screaming matches and hatred and enmity going on between husband and wife. So the problem is that they have not really accepted each other. They are just adjusting with each other. Right? Now, what is the difference? So there are certain relationships, like your servant or your co-worker or the watchman. Yes, you can definitely adjust with them. The servant is going to say, ma'am, I'm going to be 1 hour late. Or your co-worker will say, hey, cover me for 5 hours, I'm stepping out. Yes, those things are adjusting, that is normal. But there are some relationships which are very important to you, like your husband, your mother, your child. Now, these are the core of your existence, right? And such relationships, you have to learn to accept them, and accept meaning love them. Now, this is a very common problem also that I've seen. There was a wife once who came to me and says, Doc, my husband snores at night, and this has been going on for years, and I don't know what to do. It has affected our sex life, and because I can't sleep with him anymore. Or they'll come and say, I think my husband is gay. He's lost all interest in sex, and it's affected my life. So as a doctor or a psychologist, what are we supposed to tell them? Are we supposed to tell them you should divorce your partner? Or are we supposed to tell them, no, you should not do that, you have to adjust? No. So the acceptance is the key here. So what I tell them is that, you need to understand that if your husband's presence matters most in your life, then you have to find a way to accept his faults, right? The fault can be anything, like a simple thing from snoring, and a big thing from, he cheated on you or something. So, but if you want to stay as a couple just for the sake of the society or a family pressure or whatever, then you are only adjusting with your husband. And what happens, this is not going to last very long. So eventually what happens, you are going to start dwelling in self-pity or self-regret. And that is how most couples come to me who are in depression and who are in a very worst state of mind, and they sometimes I can't even help them understand. Like, it is a very pitiable situation. So I want people to understand the difference between adjustment and acceptance. Next one, desensitize your subconscious minds. Now, here I want to tell you that meditation is an excellent source to delve into your subconscious mind, right? Now, through meditation, you're going to learn to relax more, and you will actually come face to face with your inner thoughts and visions, and this will help you overcome the negative emotions. So, I want to share my own personal story, how it helped. When I was in one of my deep meditative state, I realized that my mother's lack of affection towards me during my childhood has made me craving for love as an adult. Now, I realized this during one of my meditative state, that I don't recall even a single time when my mother hugged or kissed me even once when I was a child. Now, this actually came in as a shock to me, and this was when this realization happened as an adult, and when I had become a mother of 3 kids. So, and I also recall that my father has kissed me, my grandmother, my aunt. Several people have hugged and kissed me, but not my mother. So, because of that, as a child, I started thinking that I was not as good looking as other kids. And that's why I was not hugged or kissed by my mother. And I always perceived my mom as being very beautiful. Now, you see how the innocent child's mind thinks, right? Now, when I think of it, I feel I was so what was I thinking? These thoughts are so immature, but yet it is so crucial and so important that it helped me overcome my anxiety and stress about my mother. So at the first few days, I cried a lot, after when this revelation happened. And because when someone that you love so immensely doesn't love you back, then automatically you start feeling very unworthy. Correct. And this happens even between two lovers, and that's when they push to suicide, because they feel when the other partner is not reciprocating to your feelings, then you feel unworthy, and then you feel you have to end your life. So, but that's not how I felt. So I started feeling lighter, because what I did was I slowly started to forgive my mom, and I started feeling lighter. I started forgiving myself, and I realized that. That's the day I realized that my looks or beauty has no correlation to how much love I can receive from others. So this was a wrong phenomena I had built in my childhood. So what I had built, that I had started thinking that lack of love, I started replacing it with lack of beauty. Right? So people perceive the lack of something, and especially in the childhood problems, like when you start analyzing the lack of love, you will start perceiving them in a completely altered format, and this builds in your subconscious mind. So and this brings us to the next step: replace your emotions with detachment. So when I became conscious of my subconscious emotions, then I started developing an attitude of detachment. So now today, I don't hold my mom responsible for any of my life sufferings, right? It doesn't matter why she could not hug me or kiss me like other mothers. I feel maybe she was going through depression herself, or she was in a much bigger turmoil, where she could not explain to me because I was a child. And that is what must have stopped her from showing her love to me. So whatever the reason was, I didn't venture into that reason. But what I did, I detached myself from that emotion of regret or remorse I had towards my mother. And for some, this realization can happen suddenly, like how it happened to me. For some, these subconscious minds and emotions can open up very slowly with meditation and yoga. But this is a perfect way to eliminate these negative emotions. And these kind of elimination is permanent and very effective. And then I started I decided I won't place too much weight on my emotions. So today, when I've started to perceive my emotions just by being a witness, not by experiencing it. And now this is a very important concept, which is in yoga, which is called vairagya. So it's a very, very, very efficient tool, especially for dealing with negative thoughts that arise, that stems from childhood problems. So you have to develop a detachment or a vairagya, and can separate yourself from these emotions. Now, desensitization. Now, this is a very age old method that is existent in psychology, yoga, and it's very effective for elimination of the fear. The fear can be anything. Fear can be like being afraid of snakes, being afraid of darkness. So I want to tell you an example where this is a patient really came to me, and he's very afraid of dark, and he would not step out of the room after it becomes little dark. So because of this fear, the fear grew and grew so severe that it started affecting his social life, because he stopped going out for dinner, he stopped socializing, he stopped sitting in the theater with friends. So people started making fun of him, and he even this affected his love life also, because he can't take his girlfriend outside. So it became a very, very big negative emotion for this person. So how do you eliminate that? By desensitization. So first, find yourself in a dark room. Find a dark room with very minimal light, and then slowly start visualizing yourself in a dim light, and then dim the light slowly, and then eventually slowly make it completely dark. And at first you will feel immense fear. That's normal, but with subsequent practices you will start overcoming this fear. And then once you start tolerating sitting in the dark, then you can start walking steps, 1 or 2 steps, and then so on. So this is like a slow stepwise process, and this is very effective for fear related problems. And this even effective for stage frights. People who have amazing voice, who want to dance, but they are scared. They are scared to perform on stage. So this is a very good desensitization is a very good method. Even for social anxiety, people are afraid of making friends, and they wind up being alone in the house, and that can also cause depression. For claustrophobia, claustrophobia is a fear of enclosed spaces. So such people cannot even be in a lift, they cannot travel anywhere, they cannot be on an airplane, and that will greatly affect their career choices and everything. So it's very desensitization is very good for such problems. Now, lastly, power of autosuggestion. Now, some people live in a continuous fear of developing an illness, and such people, they will develop, right? And then there are some people who will continually think they are superior to others, and both these states are bad. So you have to have a balance between your thoughts. So auto-suggestion is the driving force behind our actions in life. Now this can include suggestion from other people and your environment, etc. And this explains how you get inspired by certain people, right? When you meet someone in a party or in a gathering, and you are inspired by someone, and you want to be like that person, and that is auto suggesting. So that's why many times when people come to me because of depression, we often tell them stay with positive people, so you will be continuously motivated with positive emotions. And this is also a very good tool for I've seen that often women feel good after they hang out with their female friends, right? Because there's so much of chit chatting, laughing, and it's a positive thing. So auto suggestion becomes a very powerful tool for eradicating and neutralizing these negative emotions. So that's one of the higher in the steps of so just follow these steps in the same order. Go through this mental checklist one by one, and see where you're lacking, and how you can overcome that. Now, again, this is just a very brief quick run through that I gave. I can talk about this for an hour each about these topic, very, very crucial, but I made it very simple for you so you can understand. Now, this brings us to the Yoga Sutra. Tada sarva varana malapetasya jnanasya nantyajya jneyam alpam. Let me repeat. Tada sarva varana malapetasya jnanasya nantyaj jnepam alpam. Once all the layers and imperfections concealing truth have been washed away, the insight is boundless with very little left to know. So please, everyone, follow these steps and help others who are in depression, who are undergoing psychological illnesses, and let's help one another. So I hope you found this useful, and if you want to know more about me, visit my website authorsahila.com, and my book is coming out soon, which talks about in depth about all these concepts that I presented to you. It's called If Thoughts Can Cure, and you will learn more about all these things. Until next time, I'm signing off. Thank you so much. Bye.